So here I've emptied this box of goodies that you get inside the Tamiya Brat kit. Emptied that now, and how I'm going to prepare myself to start doing the installation work. I'm emptying out all the packets. You get inside that box was all this lovely hardware that you get from Tamiya. So skid plates and gearbox and so forth, and uprights and motor. You get suspension parts, tools, greases. Wow, all springs and end pieces. Another gearbox bag with all the gears, differential, and the genuine Tamiya motor. So putting all these into a container. These are just a couple of ready meals that we had, and plastic containers. I just retain those and wash them and either recycle those, or in my case I'm put them to some other use. So the bags, there you go, bag A, bag B, bag C, bag D, bag E, and some plastic parts as well, all in that box. So next step will be to get myself arranged and organised and start with the first step. Step one, looks like to me we're doing the main skeleton and chassis members. So one of the things I've noticed straight away, the modern Tamiya kits, you tend to open each of the parts bag according to the stage that you are working, whereas on the older style kits like this one, you are literally opening up the parts bags A, B, C, D and E almost immediately, because if you look carefully on here, I'll show you what I mean. So if you look here, step one, let's move those to the side of it, you can see we've got to put the chassis together. But to do steps 1 and steps 2, we do literally have to open up bag A, bag B, bag C, bag D, and bag E. And so technically all of these bags will have to be opened. So again, I've managed to use one of my plastic containers because I want to keep these nice and safe so we know where they are. So I'm going to empty these into here and sort myself out for each stage. So we're about to start step 1, and I've got all the parts I need together for step 1. So you've got A2, which is here, C3, which is this bit, A8, which is this bit. You've got your MR3s, 2 of those, MR7, which is this bar, and then you've got, for the screws, you've got these here, which are BA2s. They're 4 by 12 millimeters, and this here, which is BB6, which is 2 of those, which are 3 by 10 millimeters. And these are great because, again, this is where the Tamiya drawings come in, and you stick these on here, for example, and you can measure them up. That's in focus there. You can measure these up to make sure they're the exact screws that are required, and they are terrific for that. So if you see there, and then if you see here, scaled drawings makes it easier to make sure you've got the right screws. So got to put stage 1 together. Also not forgetting stage 1 here, we've got this sponge, it says here, sponge tape So got to cut this sponge tape. It doesn't exactly say how much or how much length of this, but offering that up onto the battery drawer. This is the battery, where the battery goes in, the battery drawer. Offering that up, it kind of gives you an idea of what sort of length. So it's kind of about this area here. So it's obviously not critical, but somewhere near, and it gives you a little diagram here how much to want to cut off. Okay, so we'll get on and do that. So yeah, just referencing that drawing. So we pop the ruler on there, and you can see roughly it's a little piece. So in reference to that, there's around about sort of 35 millimeters is what I'm going to cut the sponge. So I'll stick on there. In old money, that's about 1.5 inches, isn't it? So there you go. So I'll pop that on there. There we go. Use my cutting mat here as reference and make that cut. And it is a case of just cutting that, and I'm just going to make sure that it's scored, and then once I've got that on there, I'm going to use the edge of the tape measure because it's nice straight. Help me reference that. We cut that in nice and straight, so a couple of passes will do just to get that nice and straight. There we go. Let's cut. So that will go back into the bag that it came from for safekeeping, because we're probably going to need that later on in the build. And we'll do this and stick this on. It's double-sided. Take the double-sided tape off, and it's basically going in central on this central section here. So it is a case of I'm using it by eye. You could if you wanted to use a ruler, but it's not critical. And nice and straightish, something like that. There you go. That's the sponge. So that bit's done, and then we'll start putting the chassis rails together. Right, so let's do the step one. Let's take the A2, so make sure you got the orientation correct. There's the parts that you have to make sure it's right, so according to the drawing. Just going to bring this into focus, so we'll do it on top of here so you can see. Just the greasy parts, of course, if there's anything later on. So there you go, there you have it. So there's the part. So we need now C3, and C3 is screwed through these holes, these two holes here, as you can see, these two holes here, using the BA2s, which are 4mm by 12s, and you screw those into there, and then we take the bar, which is MR7, and we use the machine screws BB6 to screw that into, and that is going to be into this last hole here. And then we've also got this A8, which is a cross member. Need to make sure the orientation is correct here, so make a little note on this, and looking at the diagram, just make sure that this is facing the right way. Diagram shows you these slots here. If you turn it around the other way, they're just holes. So yep, just make sure that the orientation is correct. And then in these front two here, you've got the MR3s, which are here. So they'll literally slot into place as we do. So what I'm going to do is put those in last, because first things first, let's screw these into place. And that's going to be, I'm going to sort of hold that in one hand, and I'm kind of going to, see how we get on, pop screw through there, and I'm going to get the threads going using I've got my Tamiya set of screwdrivers, which perfectly fit here because they use the Japanese heads, which is there. So I'm just going to get that going. A couple of things just to hold it in place. Pop on the next screw. There you go. A couple of pieces in place. So just my eye orientation I'm just going to screw this now using the Tamiya screwdriver because it's the right head there. Just going to bring that tight. I'm just bringing this tight little by little. There we go. Yep. And that's quite good. Just giving it a little tug there. And all I'm doing here is, you know, you don't have to go too mad, just to nip it that's tight. You know when it's tight, and then nip it once. There we go, that's nice. So bring that back into orientation, you can now see. And then we got the bar, which is MR7. Again, making sure it's the right bar. You can offer it up onto the drawing, which is fantastic from Tamiya. And we're going to need one of these machine screws. And that's going to go on the very last screw hole here. So again, I'm going to spin around my orientation. Just get it moving, and probably use this slightly different Tamiya head. I've got two Tamiya heads here. I've got large and small, as it's a machine screw. Just there we go. There we are. Nice and tight. Don't have to go too mad with that one. There we go. Nice and tight, as you can see. So let's put the cross member in as well. Cross member. Let's have a look and line this up. Right, so looks like, yeah, so I don't know if you can pick this out on the camera. Let's see the camera, the tweezers. Looks to me like you've got this ridge area here just in the chassis member, and that corresponds and slots in. So making sure the orientation is correct, that then slots in and over that ridge member. There we are, like that. Then our MR3s in the front, like so. So now we have all these members now in. And what it says is, for the next part here, we can use the BA2 4mm by 12s, which will go in the other side of the chassis, and the BB6 as well. But first of all, we have to offer in this front, and again making sure you get the orientation correct. Got some raised edges and flat on the other side, so use the raised ridges up first, so that slots into that front section, which would be like that. And our battery door, which you saw me do the sponge, will fit in there like that. So now what we have to do is the other side of the chassis, which is A6. We have to line these all up and get these all to do what we need to do. So let's get the a little bit fiddly. So let's pop on a couple of the screws on this side first of all. I think that would be the best bet. So take these larger the screws, BA2s. Let's get a couple of threads on them. That will hold that for me. There we are. Like so. And then not forgetting that other one, which is a BB6 on the other side of that chassis. Like that one. Use the other screwdriver because it's a bit smaller. Make sure you're not cross-threading it. There we are. And then we need to make sure that that's aligned, and those are aligned. So what I've done there bring the orientation correct, is this cross member at the front. Remember, it has like a little ridge where you have to catch. So yeah, make sure that's in there. Make sure that's in there. What you're going to need to do, make sure that's ridges up. Make sure that sits in there. So, there we go. That's now ridges up. That's in. And make sure that's aligned. And then make sure the battery compartment as well gets aligned. And make sure that's aligned like that. There we go. And then tighten down these main ones first of all. Let's bring them down a bit, like so. And then not forgetting that BB6 that's at the bottom. Make sure the bar itself isn't turning. There we go. Make sure that's nice and tight, which it is. Make sure these BA2s are nice and tight, which it is. There we go, nice and tight, not overly tight. So now you can see on this bottom here, we've got the place there. So you've got the front in place, the cross member in place, this brace here, the rear, the battery door, which will fix eventually. They're all screwed, and the cross members. So that is effectively step one screwed together. Very good indeed. Very good indeed. Right. And then I hear you cry, what about C14, John? Well, no drama. C14 is a sliding piece. Again, making sure the orientation is correct. So making sure you've got these holes correct and lines like a slot, and then holes because the other side is. And this is the chassis, and this technically is going to slide in here. What we'll do is we'll be able to maneuver that in, and I'll need to loosen the screws slightly and move that in. So actually, there you go. I don't need to do that actually. There you go. That's now in and ready to roll. And that basically slides up and down, and there you go. That's C14 in as well. So those keen eyes amongst you, C14, there you are, done. So yes, now we're definitely stage one complete. So we are now on step two. Step two, we require some metal parts. So we need metal parts MP2 and MP3 because we'd be building two of these front arms. We're going to need some of these, I call them shake-proof washers, but they're quite large, going to go in between. We need two of those, and we need a couple of cap head screws, 3mm by 10, again offering them up to the drawing. You can see there, so they're from bag E, and they've got like a cap head onto those. You're going to need a couple from bag D of the nylon nuts, 3mm again. I need two of those, and a couple of spring washers from bag C, which are like this, a couple of spring washers. So what we're going to be doing is following the drawing, putting MP2 and MP3 at 90 degrees to each other, and screwing the nut washer through. So there you are. You have now this one here set, and what I'm going to do is do the other one. And I don't need to show you that because it's just a repeat.